A Time Stood Still, based on a true story. A man gets off a bus, stumbles, looks over and sees a woman smiling. "Are you okay?" she asks. "I'm sorry for smiling, but it's not often you see a one-legged man carrying his other leg." The man looked happy. "If you could help, I'll forgive you for laughing," he said in a commanding sergeant major voice. "May I take that for you?" she asks. "No, these are my life's treasures," he replied, as if his world depended on the contents of his parcel, which was briefcase-sized and covered in old brown wrapping paper. He wouldn't let it from his grasp. She wondered about him. He was elderly and proud, wearing a trench coat fashionable 60 years ago, shoes repaired a dozen times, with ageing looks associated with a troubled life. What was he doing here? She silently asked herself. This was the final stop. Nothing other than beach huts existed beyond here. Who was he? The elderly man took a seat on the bus stop bench, lifted his trench coat and refitted his war-torn wooden leg. "Ah, that's better," he grumbled. "Can't feel it, but it looks better, don't it, dear?" She agreed. She could see a twinkle in his eyes, aged with folds in his skin that reminded her of Fagin in the film Oliver. She wanted to ask why he took his leg off in the first place, but dare not. It was his business. He reminded her of the grandfather she never knew, from the faded black and white dog-eared photos her grandmother kept in her purse that she would proudly show her. Her granddad was listed missing in action, presumed dead in World War II. He was tall, dark and handsome back then. As she gathered her own things, she politely asked, "Are you okay now?" She felt obliged to assist. It was cold, with the light slowly dimming in a December evening. "Thank you, my dear. I'm fine. I've spent my life having to fend for myself. You get used to it." I realised whatever was in his parcel meant a lot to him. I offered my arm to hold while he stood himself up, grasping his parcel and his walking stick. "Do you know where Abbott's cottage is?" he asked. "Yes," I replied in surprise. "That's my home." "Ah, do you live with Ethel Abbott?" he further inquired. Before I answered, this felt spooky. Who was he? He looked harmless, but you can never tell. I threw caution to the wind. "Yes, she's my grandma." He knew more. "So you're Abby. How lovely to meet you." How did he know my name? "Don't be surprised, dear," he assured me. "When I returned from the war, I was told my wife had perished. That changed last week, when the lifelong grief disappeared. My wife Ethel named her cottage after me. I've searched my whole life for her, and I've finally returned." Goodness me. "Grandad?" I exclaimed. "Call me Tom, if you like," he replied. Heartbroken, I took his hand, softly saying, "Sorry, Grandad." "Tom, but Grandma passed away yesterday."